Oh my goodness. So it has been a little over a year since my 2013 Tesla Model S was totaled on the Turo platform. And I'm really excited today because I'm actually on my way to go pick up a Tesla Model S that I'll be kind of test driving for the day. And I'm just so excited because I haven't been behind the wheel of a Model S since that happened. It's one of my all-time favorite cars. And in this video, I really just want to share with you guys what happens when your car gets totaled on Turo, what you can sort of anticipate for, and really as a host, what your responsibilities are. I'm going to share with you guys a story and some photos from what happened because it was absolutely insane, and then we'll go through the process. But let's go pick up this Tesla Model S. It's a 2016, which I absolutely love. If I was to buy a personal car for myself, this is the car that I would buy. I would love to list another one on the platform. I'm going to share some market data points as well when it comes to Teslas, because I know so many of you guys are thinking about listing a Tesla. So which model do you go with? An S, X, a 3, a Y? There's so many options these days, but is it too saturated? I don't know. I'll share some information with you guys, but let's go grab this Tesla. Okay, let's go grab this Model S. There it is. I love this color and the rims and the tinted windows. So pretty. I'm so excited to drive a Model S today. So let's go hop out and take a look at this. I forget exactly what model this is. Let's see here. It's always a good day when you get to drive the C8 and then hop into a Model S. So this one is the 90D, and this is a 2016, which means that it should have the newer grille on it. I love this car. Definitely one of my all-time favorite cars. And that's what I love about Teslas, is that even though this is a 2016, they really are kind of timeless in that way, where the design is still so similar to the newer ones. So I'm excited to get behind the wheel of this Model S. Till this day, when I see this damage, it blows my mind. This was actually the renter's boyfriend who was driving the car, who was not added as a driver to the reservation. Accident happened at 3:45 in the morning, and no other cars were involved. He basically lost control of the car on the toll roads and hit the center divider multiple times, and that's why this car looks so mangled like this. And it was just completely awful. I'm glad that he walked away with no injuries, but the car was a total loss. Okay, so let's talk about the process of when your car gets totaled and what you have to do as a host and what your responsibility is. So just like any other accident, any other incident, or any claim that you would normally file, you got to make sure that you get that claim filed with Turo immediately, whether you have pictures of the car or not, and whether or not you have all the details. You got to get that done so you can get the process going. So you have a 24-hour window to do that. Now, in my case, like you guys saw the damage that happened, my renter actually was the one who filed the claim first. So when I woke up that morning, I actually had an email saying that, oh, your renter filed a claim, and that's how I knew it was not good. Whenever your renter files a claim, which is almost never, it was a bad sign that something was going on. So you want to get that going so that Turo can begin to process the claim. Now, in the case of my Tesla, I never even got to see it once it got totaled because it was so bad that it was immediately towed away and taken to the yard. So I never got to see it in person and see that damage. But in many cases, your car will usually be taken to a shop of your choosing if it's not that bad. I've had cars that have been in accidents that I thought were going to be okay, but once they really evaluated the damage, it ended up being that they were deemed a total loss. So you want to make sure you can get it documented if you have that ability to. If not, then the insurance claims agent will actually help you get the documentation that you might need. So for my Tesla, I wasn't physically able to go get any photos, so that's why when I submitted the claim, I really didn't have any pictures, and that's okay. But you just want to get that claim submitted in a timely fashion so you don't have any issues with the insurance or not being protected as a host. Very, very, very important. Then basically what happens from there is that it gets handed off to a third-party claims company. At least that's how it was when I last went through through this, and it's a company called DMA. And basically, when the damage is so severe, and especially when it's a total loss, Turo utilizes this third party to kind of help them out through the process, and they will actually reach out to you directly. So you're not really working with a claims agent from Turo anymore. You do still have that layer, but you are mainly dealing with the DMA claims agent. And at that point is when they're going to start asking you some questions and asking you for some documentation about your car. Primarily if you own it outright, if you have the pink slip to it, or if you have a lien holder on the car. Now, most people have their cars financed, so you are going to be giving them information about who your financing bank is, and then they will directly get in touch with them and get all the information that they need. They'll find out what you owe on the car, because that's who the payment will get issued to if you owe anything on your car. Now, if you own the car outright and you have proof of ownership, then you will get paid out directly yourself. A check will get sent to you. So it's a very, very simple process, and quite honestly, actually doesn't really require much from the host at all, which is really nice. So they've really streamlined the whole system, and they make your life a whole lot easier. The only thing as a host that you have to kind of be patient with is the time that it takes for these claims to kind of resolve themselves, because they do go through a whole process of having to value the car, figuring out what it's worth so that they can then pay you out accordingly. Okay, so now that you have your claim filed, everything's documented, the insurance company has all the information that they need, how long does it take for a totaled car claim to pay out on the Turo platform? And unfortunately, this is kind of the hardest part, because it's a little bit of a waiting game on the host end. But typically what I have seen is 6 to 8 weeks. And that's really if everything goes smoothly, you have all the proper documentation, they're getting all the information that they need, and it all just kind of works out. Can these claims go longer? Absolutely. Can they be shorter? Absolutely. It's just on a case-by-case basis, but typically 6 to 8 weeks is the average amount of time that I've seen. So during that time period, you are still responsible for, any financial liabilities that you have on a car. Also, you're out of revenue unless you are on the 60% host protection plan. Then loss of revenue is covered, and they average that based on, I think they take like the last 30 days and what your average day rate was and kind of what your average earnings were. I'm not on that plan, so I'm not super familiar with it, but I will put the link to Turo's host protection plans in the description below so that you guys can get the fine print on that. But yeah, that's the only part that's a little bit tough, because you're just kind of stuck. You're still waiting for the payout on the car. You're not earning money. It's not like you can go get another car. Well, I mean, technically you can, but you probably want to get this settled before you move forward getting another car, and just make sure that everything is square. So let's talk about next exactly how the money works and if you're going to have to come out of pocket for anything. Okay, so before I get into the third part of the claims process and exactly how the payout works, let me talk to you guys really quick about Teslas and how they are doing on the Turo market, because there's a lot of talk around this. And yes, I am sitting in the front. I had to take a break really quick. So Teslas are very interesting, because if you look at almost any market in the Turo marketplace, any state, Model 3s have just taken over. Pretty much any state or city that you look in, you'll always notice that within the top 6 cars, you see at least one Model 3, if not 2, 3, 4, or 5. It's insane. And obviously it makes sense because there's so many people that have that car, but I believe that it is overly saturated. And for me personally, and you always got to do your own market research, I would stay away from listing a Model 3 on the Turo platform because there's just too many of them. Now, if I was going to list a Tesla, I would definitely go with a Model S or a Model X personally. I think that there is definitely room in the market for those Teslas because there's just not as many of them. Now, of course, they are way more expensive. The S's start at least 80,000, and if you're going for, you know, really high end like the new Plaid model, you're looking at a starting price of at least 120. And then the Model X's go up from that. They start at about 90, and so they are expensive, which is probably also why they are a little bit more rare than the Model 3s, which are way more cost effective. I think they start at around 38,000 or so, and then you have the Model Ys, which are around the high 40s. So of course, way more affordable, more people have them, but also with that, they're just so saturated and it's very difficult to compete. I think over time, we will naturally see more and more people with those Model 3s and Model Ys come onto a platform, and it'll eventually just get so competitive where you have to really bring your day rates down. Now, what I love about Teslas on the Turo platform is that they rank really well, and for me personally, I have a hypothesis that part of it is because they see a very low claims rate. Now, when I had my Tesla, I probably had over 200 trips on it, and I almost never had any claims, no accidents, nothing until it actually got totaled. So I can see how these cars are incredibly safe. It's the car that I would personally drive myself. They're just incredible vehicles. So for me personally, my advice would be stay away from the 3s and the Ys. There's too many of them, and you have to make the assumption that as time goes on, more and more people are going to list those cars. You do see more of an opportunity with the S and the Y, but you have to get them at good deals because they are quite expensive, but they do also get really great day rates. Now, click on the card above if you want to see me do a market walkthrough where I'll actually do a screen share of going through the Turo market and looking at how Teslas are doing and looking at the cars that are really ranked very high. So hopefully you guys find that helpful. And again, if you're liking this video so far, make sure to hit like. So let's get into the third part of the claims process. So I definitely have to take this Model S for a drive. I forget how much I love this car. I love the way it drives. I love everything about it. I really want another one. But while I take the Model S for a drive, let me talk to you guys about what I think the third step to the total loss process is. And that is understanding your payout as a host and kind of what you're responsible for financially. So basically what Turo will do is they will evaluate what the actual cash value of your car is. So the ACV, you'll see this term kind of thrown around. And basically what that means is that they will typically look at the condition of your car plus whatever the mileage was at the start of that trip where the damage happened, right? And they will take that and they'll compare it against other cars that are similar makes and models, if not the exact cars that were very recently sold that match the same sort of layout of your car, and then they will determine what your car was worth. Now, one thing that is very important to note is that when they look at those pre-trip photos of your car, they will look for pre-existing damage and they will estimate what that pre-existing damage was, and they will actually subtract that from whatever the actual cash value is. So when this happened to my Tesla, they estimated almost $2,000 in pre-existing damage, which I was very surprised at, and I thought honestly was a bit unfair that that's what they came up with, and unfortunately there was nothing I could do to fight it. I tried and it just made no difference. So that's why you really want to maintain your cars, because let's just say something bad happens, like your car gets totaled and you have all these little dings and dents and scratches and, you know, curb rash or whatever, that stuff is going to get deducted from the actual cash value of the car, and that sucks. Because if there is a difference between what they determine the actual cash value is and it's a car that you have financed and you owe more than what they evaluate the car to be worth, you are responsible for that balance in between. So for example, on my Tesla, they estimated it to be worth, and I'm giving you guys rough numbers because it's been so long ago, they estimated it to be roughly, I think, like $27,000, whereas I owed 32 on it. So there was about a $5,000 gap between what they estimated and what I owed, meaning I was responsible for that as a host, and there's just kind of no getting around it. You are going to be responsible for that. Now, in my situation, I was lucky enough to where I had gap insurance. So my gap kicked in and it covered the balance and I was square. So gap is also one of those things that I don't really want to advise on because it is such a gray area. There are a lot of technicalities to it, so you just really need to read the fine print of any gap that you opt in for. In my situation, I got lucky and I was covered with my gap, and so I didn't end up really owing anything. Now, another instance in which you might be responsible for some out-of-pocket expenses is if your Turo host protection plan has a deductible. So if you're on one of the lower tier protection plans that has, you know, a couple $1,000s in deductibles, or even the 750 or the 250, that does get subtracted from the payout amount. So if that leaves a gap in what Turo pays out versus what you owe, you are also responsible for that. Now you have to remember that it doesn't matter if the renter was at fault, and obviously in my case the damage was 100% caused by the renter. As a host, my protection comes from my host protection plan, not from any insurance that the guest selected, so I am still responsible for that deductible. A lot of times people believe that when a car is totaled on Turo, I've gotten this message so many times, that even if you have a deductible, you're not responsible for it because the car was totaled. So I'm not sure what the rationale is behind that, but I'm here to tell you that that is not the case. You are still responsible for that deductible. So that's kind of the third and final step of the total claims process and kind of what you can anticipate to happen. Unfortunately, this is one of those things that is just not talked about enough. It is very rare for a car to get totaled. I mean, I've had thousands and thousands and thousands of trips, and I've had 3 cars that were totaled, and when I look at what that percentage is, it is incredibly minuscule and tiny. So it's not something that I think most of you need to worry about. It's just that the longer you do Turo, the probability of something like that happening increases. So you just want to keep that in the back of your mind so that you can be prepared, especially for those of you that have cars out there that do have loans on them. It's very important to understand actual cash value versus what you owe, and check and see if you have gap insurance, because sometimes that gap can kick in and it can really save you if you owe more, which most people are upside down on their cars. So you really need to understand your numbers and really have a good grasp on what your financial liabilities are when you get yourself involved in a business like Turo. It's not just as simple as getting a car and listing it. There's so much more to that, and the financial risk is quite high if you don't know exactly what you're doing. So really pay attention to that. All right, you guys, I hope that you guys found this video helpful. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like this video, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to my channel. Once again, my name is Saimah and this is Saimah's Experience. Thanks so much, guys, and I'm gonna continue to enjoy my day while I drive this Model S and kind of get back on the road. Thanks, guys. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye, guys.